Uh, well, you made me my own
Yes.
instance of the AWS,
No,
right? Or
not an instance. I just simply asked you a question, a very simple question. How, if I want to give access to some user, then how I can give access to him, right? So for this, we use the AWS service. Could you please tell me the name of that AWS service, which we use to give some person access of AWS account? So we use the IAM, right?
IAM,
Yes,
I-
IAM service, right?
Identity and Access
And
Management.
yes, identities as management.
Oh,
And
okay.
when I go to the IAM, I created the user, right? If you remember, I created the user with the name of Zen
Mm-hmm.
slash Devo slash RF, right? And after creating the user, I send you credential of that particular user, right? With the start URL.
Mm-hmm.
And after getting this credential, you are easily signed in into my AWS account, right?
Mm-hmm.
And after you signing in into my AWS account, you created the EC2 instance, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for creating an EC2 instance, there are some prereqs, right? Prereqs means there is some services that have to be deployed first to create the EC2 instance, right? So if you
Right.
remember, if we want to create an EC2 instance, what services we need to create it first? Do you remember?
We have to create the I
Yes.
remember the diagram where you broke it up into two sides. One was private, one was public.
Yes.
Those were called um
So to create a EC2 instance, you need some subnets, right?
right.
And to create a subnets, we need to deploy the VPC, right? So first of all, we need to create a VPC first, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we created the VPC. What does it mean by the VPC and what is the use of VPC? Can you please tell me?
The virtual private cloud is basically a place where you can control the flow of traffic to your online, to your
Yes.
resource. So you can dictate
Your
the incoming and ongoing traffic.
Yes. So every service that we want to create on AWS are must be located on VPC, right?
Right.
If I want to create an EC2 instance, then I have to make a VPC first, right? If I want
Right.
to create a RDS database instance, then I have to create a VPC first, right? And
Right.
in VPC, you can deploy many services as you want, right?
Right.
And these services are created at the subnet level, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because the first layer is VPC and in VPC we have subnets. And how many type of the subnet we have?
Uh, Two, right? Private and
Yes.
public.
What is the difference between private and public?
Um, what is the difference between the public and private subnets? The public one,
Subnets.
um, I would say that the public one is that subnet would be one that, you know, um, is accessible to anyone in the public, whatever's in it. And the private one
Yes.
is only accessible to people that you share it with. Ideally, I guess, a particular department within your company or just your company or something like that.
So basically, the purpose of creating the different type of the subnet like public or private. So whenever we want to create any service public, we put into the public subnet, right? And if we
Hmm.
want to create any service private, then we put that service into the private subnet. Like if you remember, we created the public EC2 instance, right?
Right,
And for creating a public EC2 instance, we put into the public subnet, right?
right.
So that's how our public EC2 instance are created, right? So after created an EC2 instance, if you remember, when we were creating the EC2 instance. If you remember, we create a key pair, right? Do you
Hmm.
know what is the purpose of key pair?
It is the key that you would use to connect your VPC to your
Not a VPC, your EC2 instance with
EC2
your
instance to your hold on.
local machine,
Yeah, local machine. It would be
right?
right.
If you remember, we connect this EC2 instance, which is located on AWS. We connected it with our local machine, right?
Right.
So how we can connect it? Do you remember the process?
Mm. Um uh,
So after creating an instance, when our EC2 instance successfully created, then we copy the command of connection, right? We go to the EC2 instance and we see on a SSH portion, we see the some command related to connect, right? We just copy this command, and after copy this command, we go to our local folder where
mhm,
we saved our key pair file, right? So
right.
basically, we open that folder on command prompt and run the simple command of connecting the EC2 instance, right? And after
Right.
running the command, our EC2 instance are successfully connected with our local machine, right?
Right.
Now, this EC2 instance, which is located on AWS, are now accessible to our local machine, right? So
Right.
this is the whole over the lecture, right? So let's go further. Let me share my screen with you.
Okay.
Okay, so if you remember, we basically created the EC2 instance actually for our CI/CD, right? Because we are discussing about CI/CD, how to automate our deployment process, right?
Mhm.
So basically, we discussed if we want to deploy our application code into some server, we need the server, right? So that's why we create this EC2 instance tomorrow, right?
Mhm.
Now we already have a concept of GitHub, right? This GitHub. So
Mhm.
there are many services where you can store your code. I already tell you one is AWS Code Commit, second one is GitHub, and other third provided like Bitbucket or GitLab, right? But for most of the companies uses and go with the GitHub, so that's why we use the GitHub, right?
Mhm.
You can also
Mhm.
use the AWS Code Commit, but as I already said, this AWS Code Commit is deprecated by AWS now, right? So these are not available for the new users, right? So that's why we go with the GitHub, right? So
Mhm.
GitHub is basically place where we store where the our application code are stored, right? And now we are going to discuss about the CI/CD means code pipeline, right?
Mhm.
So in pipeline, if you remember, we have three stages. First stage is
The first stage is the code,
source stage, right? In
right? Oh,
is
source.
source stage is basically fetch your code from the GitHub, right?
Mhm.
And in the second stage is a build stage in which your code are actually built. And what does it mean by build? Building the code?
You are
Building means
like you're
testing and running the code, right?
got it.
And
Okay.
after testing and running, in the last stage, we actually deploy that code in some server, right? Maybe
Well,
EC2
hold on, wait,
instance
wait. You said that
on.
building is testing. Is that the same thing? Building the code and testing the code means the same thing?
Yes, yeah, we can say it is the same thing because in the building stage, we do two of the things, right? One is running the code, and after whenever our code is running, if it has some error, it automatically given by the build stage, right? So that's why we name it test stage, right? So if you can see here, we use the AWS code build service for it, and AWS code build do the two type of the thing, right? Means this stage can do the building of the code and can do the testing of the code, right?
Mm-hmm.
So basically, in that stage, your code is actually running and testing, right? And
Mm-hmm.
after running and testing, in the last stage, we actually deploy our code into some server, right? Maybe this server is located on AWS that we created earlier, or maybe located on our on premises, right? Something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So now we are going to discuss about how to create a pipeline And now we discuss about how to create the first stage of the pipeline, right? So
Mm-hmm.
first stage of our pipeline is source stage, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in source stage, what we do, we are going to do attach this source stage with our GitHub repository, right? So how we
Okay.
can do it? Let's do demo, right? So first of all, I have to go my AWS account, right?
Right.
So I am going to use my this account. Okay, this one maybe some sensation. We go with this one. Okay, let me open. Okay, so this is my AWS account or AWS console, right? Now we are going to create a CI/CD pipeline, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in a pipeline, we have a first stage, which is our source stage. And
Mm-hmm.
what we do in the source stage?
We get the code in here, like we get the code from our local machine to
We
here.
are going to no, we are going to attach the source stage with our GitHub repository, right? So source stage is basically fetch your code from your GitHub repository, and after the fetching it transfer your code to the next building stage in which your code are going to be tested and built, right? So first of all, let's go. So which service we are going to use to create a pipeline? Pipeline means there are three stages involved in it: source, build, and deploy, right? So to create a pipeline, we have a service with the name of code pipeline, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you need to search a service with the name of code pipe, right? So this one is the code pipeline service. So I am going to do just go into that particular service. Let it open. Yes, now it is open. So there is currently no pipeline here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what we are going to do, we are creating new pipeline, right? So
Mm-hmm.
click on create pipeline. So pipeline basically means there are multiple stages that basically created our pipeline, right? So it is just asking whether you want to create a pipeline with the automatic template, or you want to create a pipeline by your own, means you want to create either the custom pipeline, or either you want some template, a pre-built template for your pipeline, right? So in
Mm-hmm.
most of the scenario, we use the build custom pipeline, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because according to our code, according to our organization requirement, we set the pipeline by our own, right?
Mm.
So there is no need to use the template one, right?
So this whole
So
process that we're doing right now is basically, the idea of this is to write code on our local device and then basically create a pipeline, to get that code to the to the cloud basically on AWS, and then
no,
to
so
continuously
basically,
integrate and deploy
yes,
from
yes,
there.
yes. The basic idea of the pipeline is that whenever the developer makes some changes in the code, they just need to push their code into some GitHub repository, right? And
Hmm.
after pushing the GitHub repository, my pipeline automatically triggered without manual involvement. And when the pipeline triggered, there are automatically three stages are going to be run. One is source stage, second is build stage, and third is deploy stage. So my code automatically fetched and after fetch it automatically build and test, and after automatically build and test it is automatically deployed, right? So that's the purpose of creating a pipelines, to automate the deployment of your code, right? So
Mm.
that's the need of creating a pipeline. So first of all, we for creating a pipeline, we use the AWS core pipeline service, right? So
Right.
currently I am in the pipeline service, so I am going to create a new pipeline, and he is asking me either you want to create your own pipeline or either you want to use some template, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we are going to build the custom pipeline. Means that I want to create my own pipeline, right? So
Okay.
go to next, and after that you have to name it, right? So give some meaningful name to your pipeline.
Um,
If you remember, we used this, I gave you some naming convention. So whenever you want to create some services on AWS, you should name it according to this convention, right? If you
okay.
remember.
So yeah, name of the project and environment and service names.
Yes, yes, brilliant. So first of all, you need to write a project name. So let's quote what is our current project. We are doing the DevOps training. So we simply write the DevOps training, right? And
Mm-hmm.
DevOps training is known on the camel notation, right? Camel notation means the first word is shortest one, and after, if you want to match with other word, you need to write the first letter must be in uppercase, right? So
Mm-hmm.
DevOps training minus, after you need to write the environment, right? So what is our current environment? It is dev, right? And after that, what should we write?
Um, name of the service,
Yes. So what is the name of our service?
pipeline.
Yes,
Uh,
pipe.
okay.
Because whatever the service you are going to create, you just write the name here, right? So I name it DevOps Training Dev Pipe, right?
Mm-hmm.
So after that, he's asking what mode you are going to use, right? So this is some mode used by the AWS. If you cannot select any mode, the by default, yeah, code pipeline uses the substrate mode. That is basically the different types, or we can say a different methods to run the pipeline, right? So we always go with the queue pipeline. Queue means whenever there is some changes in the code, the pipeline automatically triggered and done, right? So these are the some methods of triggering the pipe, right? So if I want to trigger a pipeline, whenever the developer made some changes in the code, I go with a queue, right? But in a parallel, basically your execution is don't wait for the other run, right? Means whenever the developer made some changes on code, the pipeline run automatically with the changes of code, right? So this
Mm-hmm.
is not a good practice to run your pipeline with the code changes. It is always a good practice whenever developer make changes in the code, and after making changes, whenever he push their code into the GitHub repository, then your pipeline are going to be executed, right? So that's
Mm-hmm.
why we use the Q1, right?
Mm-hmm.
After that, this is the service role, right? So whenever you created some services on AWS, there is some services that need a role. What does it mean by role?
Um, meaning the role of a person or that, yeah,
This is the
will be using
role.
it.
This is the role for the service. And what is our current service? Our service code pipeline, right? So basically, he says we need to create a service role for our code pipeline. For why? Because whenever you created some services on AWS, he wants the permission, right? And to give them permission or to run our code, we need to set some roles, right? So in that case, if you want to create a new service role, you just need to select this option, new service role. And after that, you just need to write your role name, right? So I am go with the default one, right? So it
Mm-hmm.
automatically create a service role for me and give this pipeline automatically give some permissions, right, to running our pipeline.
Okay.
So that's how they work. and there is no need to create a variable first. Just go to and also go see in the advanced setting if there is any. So there is some setting with the name of artifact store. You know what does it mean by artifacts? Maybe you heard the word before,
Yeah, artifact
artifact.
would be any kind of document or anything like that
Yes,
that you want
yes.
to.
So whenever your pipeline is created, it give you some artifacts. Maybe it is a build artifact, maybe it is a deploy artifact. So it created the some files at the runtime, right?
Hmm.
So it actually says whenever your pipeline trigger, it created some files. So where you want to save this file, right? So where you want to save this file, either you want to save this file in some storage, right? So that's why it says if you doesn't select any type, so it automatically create an S3 bucket for me and save our file in that bucket, right? Do you
Hmm.
remember what is the S3 bucket?
S3 bucket.
Okay, let me tell you.
I forgot.
So this is if you want to go any service, you just search its name, right?
Hmm.
Here I just name S3 and after that you just click on new tab and here is my S3 is open. So basically S3 is a simple storage where you save your document files, text files, any type of the files are stored on
Hmm.
S3, right? So we can say it is a AWS cloud storage, which we can use to store our files, right?
Hmm.
So if you want to create a bucket according to your own use case, you can create it by just clicking on create bucket. So bucket means this is we can say this is a folder where we are going to save our files, right?
Okay.
So just give some bucket name and always remember that bucket name must be unique and must be in lowercase, right? There is no capital letter involved in it, right? So bucket does not allow us to write any capital letter in it, right? And it must be unique, right? What does it mean by unique? Unique means your bucket name must be unique, means it is not matching with the other person bucket name, right? So you always name the bucket a very unique name. So it is a good practice to give your bucket name according to the same variables which we use so far or same naming convention like project. And what is our project? Come
Um,
on. DevOps
Pipeline. DevOps dash dev.
training.
Oh,
Yes, DevOps training. And for training, can I use the capital T here?
yeah.
No.
No, 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 no.
Why?
You can't.
Why?
Gotta be all
Why?
lowercase here.
No. Yeah, because bucket name always in the lowercase, right? But
Yeah.
for creating the other services like pipeline or EC2, we can use the uppercase. But for the S3, our all the letter must be in lowercase, right?
Locals.
So
Hmm.
DevOps training, and after you need to set environment, which is our dev environment. And after that, you need to write your
Um,
service name, right? This is S3 bucket, right?
yeah.
And now
Okay. Hold
after
on.
that, this,
Before we
yeah,
continue, explain the bucket one more time.
okay. So bucket is simply a storage, AWS storage,
Hmm.
where you store your files, store your folders, or store your videos, store your any type of the file you can store in your S3 bucket, right?
That
It
are
is,
associated with your code.
yes, it is, we can store our code in it, but this is not basically a repository, right? Please remember that.
No, no,
We cannot
it's like
use,
the files that go with your code, like to explain the code or
yes,
diagrams.
yes,
So the
yes, we
relationship
can store.
of a bucket to a EC2 instance would be the same relationship of Jira to Confluence. Jira is where you're managing your
Mm,
Confluence is where you're storing
yeah,
all your
we
files.
can say that, like whenever we want to store some our application code file or deployment file. we need some storage to save in it, right? So we can use the S3 bucket to save these files, right?
Makes sense.
So that's why we create the S3 bucket. You can store the code in it, but this is not a good option to storing the code. So that's why we always use the GitHub repositories to store our code, right? But you
Hmm.
can store your artifacts or maybe some important files, important images, right? You can
Hmm.
store in it, right? And it provides you a very extensive storage, right? There is no limit to store your file. You can store any type of any large file in it S3 bucket very easily, right? And
Right.
it costs really less for us, right? So we
Right.
can say it is simply just like your drive storage, right? Your just whenever you created some Gmail, right? There is a drive associated with your Gmail, right?
Right.
Do you know what is drive is? If this is my Gmail, right? So there is some drive storage. Let me go here. This is my, yes, this one, right? So this is a drive. This is drive means this is the Google Drive and a Google Cloud Storage where I store my different file like my research paper, my motivation letter, my ads, my Docker, so my videos, right? So this
Hmm.
is some storage which I utilized to access anywhere, right? So simple is that you can use the S3 bucket, AWS S3 bucket to store your some artifacts in it, right?
Hmm.
And you can make the either you want to create a public bucket or private bucket, it's all depends on you, right? If you created S3 bucket, then this bucket are easily accessible through internet, means everyone can access this bucket, right?
Uh-huh.
But if you want to create a private bucket, then it can only be accessible by some persons that allow access by it, right?
Right.
So how we can set the public and private? So this is the options. So it says choose the object ownership, right? Object ownership, what does it mean by objects? Do you know? So in
Mm.
a bucket, we store the different files, different text file, different videos. So this whole of these files are basically object, right? So object, it is a simply we can say the entity which is located in some directory, right? So it is asking for us what type of the ownership you want to decide for your object, right? So if
Hmm.
you select the ACL disable, it does mean your objects in the bucket are only accessible by the root user, right? And it
Hmm.
is not accessible by the some other person. But if you choose the ACL enable, it means your objects in the S3 bucket are public and everyone can access it, right? So
Okay.
the recommended setting is ACL disable, which means our object in the S3 bucket are highly secure and no one can access it, right,
Okay.
without our permission.
What does the ACL stand for?
Access access control list, right?
Access control?
Yeah, access control list. Here you can see this is ACL stand for access control list, right?
Okay.
Means it is basically controlling the access of the object, right? So that's why its short name is ACL, right? Okay, after that, here is the option to block the public access for this bucket, right? So if you want to create a public bucket, then you can uncheck this option, right? But if you want to create a private bucket, you need to select this option, block all public access. And what does it mean by block all public access? Means this bucket does not have any public access. It is only accessible to the specific users, right?
Right.
And after that, there is a very important option with the name of bucket versioning. Do you know what does it mean by versioning?
Well, that would mean that just like you have versions in Git, uh, where you have different versions of your code, the bucket
Yeah.
versioning would be similar, where if you have artifact A, but then you made changes to artifact A and you want to store the new version, and you have a bunch of other artifacts also, you can do a different version which has the new artifacts, new
So
versions of the artifacts.
what is the advantaging of enable the versioning?
What is the advantage of enabling the versioning?
Yes.
So that as people update their documents and things like that, the entire team can see it, and the most updated versions of the artifacts are in that.
No, no, that's not a purpose. So basically, the multiple versioning means whenever you made some changes in the bucket, it automatically store your changes, right? So let's suppose I made some mistake. I made or upload this some file which I should not upload in the bucket, right? Now
Hmm.
I want to go to the previous step, right?
Hmm.
Just like a undo, right? So how we can do it? If the bucket versioning is unable, then we can easily move to our previous version, right? So that is the purpose of enabling the bucket version, right?
Okay, let me read that for a second.
So here you can see versioning is means of keeping multiple variants of object in same bucket, right? In bucket you have multiple files, right? And whenever you made some changes in the file, it automatically stored the version of this object in the bucket, right? And you can
That's
use, yeah,
what they said here is exactly what I said. That's what I was
yeah,
telling you, is that different
yeah,
versions, as you make updates to the
yes, you
artifact,
can,
you can
yeah,
save every version of it. So you don't, if you want to refer
yeah,
back to an older version, you can go back in that bucket and see the version which had the older artifacts in there, older versions of
yes.
it.
Yes, but you didn't answer the correct for why we create the versioning, right? So basically the creating the versioning help us to restore to our previous version, right?
Right. If we
So
make a
if you
mistake,
can,
whatever might happen, just like
yes,
a Word document.
if you can read this line, you can use the versioning to preserve, retrieve, and restore every version of every object stored in S3 bucket. And with versioning, you can easily recover from both unintended user action means a wrong action or maybe some error or maybe some failure. You can go easily roll back, right? So
Right.
that's why we enable the versioning on the bucket. And
Hmm.
after that, there is some option of tag. Tags means some extra name to associate with your bucket. Like if I want to add some tag, let's suppose I add the tag with the name of name, and I write here names and right. So what is the purpose of tag here? Let's suppose if some person created a S3 bucket, right?
Hmm.
But I really know who created the bucket, right?
Hmm.
So I want to know who created the bucket. I include the tag whenever I create the bucket. So I easily, by seeing that tag, I easily know that this Zan person created this bucket, right?
Hmm.
Sorry. So this is how we can use the tags. This is a simple optional option, or we can see the extra option, right? For the best naming convention, right? Okay, next one is default encryption. This is really important one. And what does it mean by encryption?
Uh, to use coded language so that it is not you can't interpret, humans can't read it.
So basically,
Encrypted.
encrypted form is something like that, which is not easily readable by a person or human, right? So
Right.
it is some encrypted by some keys or some those values which is are not easily understand by the simple human, right?
Right.
So after encrypted the object, you need to decrypt it, right?
Hmm.
So how we can decrypt it? We can decrypt it by using the key, right? So this is a true method of encrypted the file and decrypted the file, right? So for the encryption, S3 bucket provides three type of the encryption type, right? First
Mm.
one is server-side encryption, which is our default encryption. Like if I does not select any encryption, then it go with the server-side encryption, right? What does
Hmm.
it mean by server-side encryption? Server-side encryption is the encryption which is automatically encrypted our objects in the S3 bucket, right? And we don't need to take care of it, like we don't need to take care of encrypts our object and do not need to take care of decrypting the objects, right? AWS automatically manage this encryption for us, right? So this is the very powerful option, right? And if you
Mm-hmm.
don't want to create a default encryption key that is managed by AWS, you want to create your own encryption key that is managed by yourself, then there is a service with the name of KMS, right? You can use this service to encrypt your file or encrypt the objects in S3 bucket, right? But
Mm-hmm.
most of the cases we go with the server side encryption because we don't need much hectic to encrypt our object by our own, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we usually go with the default one, so AWS can manage encryption by itself, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay, bucket key. So basically, whenever you want to use SSE KMS encryption enabled, you can enable this bucket key, right? So this
Mm-hmm.
is the one whenever you want to decrypt your object, right? After that, this is very important option, object lock. Do you know what does it means?
Mm.
Let's suppose I created the S3 bucket and I upload a very important file in it, right? Let's
Oh,
suppose
I
your
get the idea. I got it.
yeah,
You can
let's
lock a artifact or something in a version and you can't change it. Can't make our updates to it. You locked it.
yeah, you lock it and no person can delete this object, right?
Right.
Even if they want to delete it, right?
Right.
So how then if we want to delete it, how we can delete it? So first of all, we need to disable this option object log, and after disabling, we are able to delete this file, right? But if we go with object log enable, then the objects which is located on our S3 bucket are not going to be deleted, right? It is only be deleted when this option is disabled, right? So this is really a powerful option. It is something like a lock on your objects, so no one can delete your important objects in it, right? So currently I'm going with the disable, right? So after setting this whole over, you just need to click the create bucket, right? And it is simply created your S3 bucket for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's wait for it. Yes, it says your DevOps training, dev S3 bucket are successfully created. Let's search for it. So our bucket name is DevOps, this one, right? So just go into the bucket, right? So there is no object in it, right? So if I want to put my objects here, so I have option with the name of upload, right? So you just need to click on this upload, right? And you after that you need he asking you either you want to add files or add folders, right? So
Mm-hmm.
we can also add the folder and files here. Let's suppose I want to add files in the S3 bucket, so just click on add files, and now I am in my local folder, right? So let's suppose I want to put this docker files, right? These all files in this bucket, so just simply click on open, right? So these files are uploaded, and after uploaded, you can also set the permission for it, right? Either you want to give this object public permission or private permission. I am go with the default one and click on upload, right? So
Mm-hmm.
now these objects which is located in my local machine is now in my S3 bucket, right? So now go to your S3 bucket again, and here you can see the objects where I just uploaded, right? Which is
Mm-hmm.
located in my local machine is now is on S3 bucket. And if we want to create upload some folders, right? So just click on upload and click on add folder. And that's what I want to add this node module folder. So just select this folder and press upload. So it says upload the 516 file to the site. So just click on upload, right? So now this folder are edited in this, right? So after just clicking on upload, So it's going to be add this folder into my S3 bucket, right? So
Mm-hmm.
this is a very simple storage where you can store every size of an object or every size of file in it, right? So this is a very simple storage method provided by AWS. Just simple like your Google Drive, right?
Right.
So because there are a lot of the objects here, so I don't want to upload it here. So it is just our demo. Just cancel it, right? So this is the concept of S3. But now go to your pipeline again. So basically, that's why in our pipeline he is asking either you want to store your artifact in S3 bucket or
Mm-hmm.
maybe in your custom location in S3 bucket, right? So
Mm.
I want to go with the default location of S3 bucket, right? I don't want to create another method to store our artifact, right? So whenever you go with the default location, it automatically creates the S3 bucket, which is created by AWS code pipeline and store our artifacts in it, right? And the second one is encryption key. You can also encrypt your pipeline with the some managed key or custom managed key, right? So I am going to go with the default AWS managed key, or the encryption and decryption automatically managed by AWS. There is no user involvement in it, right? So I am going with the default option.
Yeah.
So after go to the next here, you can see the first stage, which is our source stage, right? So if
Mm-hmm.
you remember, if we want to create a pipeline, we have three stages: source stage, build stage, and deploy stage. You can also see the stages here, right? Step one is creating an option. Step two is creating a pipeline setting. We already did the pipeline setting. If I go to previous, so this is our pipeline setting in which we named our pipeline and we select the mode, like what type of the pipeline we want to make, and then attach the some role with our pipeline, and then attach the S3 bucket for storing the artifact, right? So after setting up the pipeline, when we go to the next, so this is our next stage, which is first stage, source stage, right? And in the source stage, we basically do what?
We're fetching our code from,
Yes. So
our
we are going to attaching our code, which is located at where?
GitHub.
Yes, brilliant, right? So,
Does it have to be in GitHub? Can it be in any other type of
so
repository?
yes, you can attach the multiple repository. If you can go to this option, you can see the possible option where your code is located, and you can attach this code with this pipeline, right? So
Can I
first
s-
one is AWS code commit, which
can,
is yeah.
can I see the
What you
list?
say?
Can I see the rest of the options?
Sure. Let
Scroll that
me,
down a
yeah,
little bit.
let me down.
Okay, so are these all GitHub, Git this, Git that? Is that all part of the same company?
No, this is a total different company. Like AWS Code Commit is the AWS service which provide or help us to store our code. Amazon ECR is also the AWS service that provide us help to store our code.
Okay,
And
so
this
what
S3,
is
yeah,
GitHub not a company? What is GitHub?
GitHub is also a company, or we can say a website or a platform where our code is stored, right? So it provide all the possible option for you. Whatever your code is located, you can easily attach your code with this stage, right?
Is GitLab also
So
part of GitHub company, or is that a different
no,
company?
no, that's a different company. That's a
So
different
these
company.
companies just happen to be all named Git at the beginning of it?
Yeah, always remember that AWS Code Commit, GitHub, and GitLab all are the different companies, but have same steps to pushing the code, or we can say creating a branches. All these commands are totally same, right? But the different platform that provide us the opportunities to storing our,
What
right?
I'm not understanding why they're all called Git. Why does every company have to
uh
start the same exact way?
Git, so basically the Git is not a company. If you remember, in our first class, we differentiate between Git and GitHub, right?
Yes,
So Git is basically the version control system. Just remember the meaning of Git. Git means version control system,
I
right?
get that, but I'm
So
saying
it
like
is. Yeah.
I get what you're saying, but I'm saying that all these are completely different companies, right?
Yeah,
So
different.
why are they all named so similarly? One is called GitHub, the other one's called GitLab, the other one is called uh Git whatever lab.
Always remember that no. These three one are the same, right? GitHub, right? And these are the three method of to storing the code, right? And GitLab and Self-Managed GitLab are the same. So these are
Mm,
the total two companies, GitHub and GitLab, right? And this one is the third AWS code commit, Amazon ECR S3, right? This is the Amazon one, right?
and
This
then
is the
Bitbucket
GitHub.
is its own
These three
company.
services, these three services are the GitHub, and these two are the GitLab, and the first three is the
Amazon.
Amazon, and Bitbucket is the different one. Yeah,
Okay.
Bitbucket one is also a different, right?
So
So
GitLab and
this,
GitHub just happen to be similarly named.
yeah, so this could be a similar but a total different companies, right? If
Mm,
you can different write the difference between GitHub and GitLab, it will give you a difference, right? So yeah. So GitLab was developed by this maybe some person named Dimitri Zafarostin Wardage. Yeah, right. And
hmm
GitHub was developed by Chris this, right? And
hmm
it provides GitLab is open source for community edition. It is not an open source, right? Public repository loan the user make public repository have unlimited, so every platform have their own features, like if some offer unlimited free repositories but the GitLab provide only make the specific public repository for the some user, right? So according to your company's requirement, you have to decide where you have to go, right? If you want to go with the GitLab or if you want to go with GitHub, or if you want to go with the Bitbucket, or either you want to go with the AWS, right? So
hmm
these are the simple the companies that provide us the facilities to store our application code in it, right?
hmm
So currently we are creating a pipeline, and in pipeline we have a source stage. In the source stage we need to connect our GitHub repository with this stage, right?
hmm
So we are going to learn how to attach our GitHub repository with this code pipeline source tree, right?
Okay.
So first of all, you need to select the option where your repository is located, right? So where our repository is located? Come on.
Uh, it's gonna be located in the GitHub.
Yes, in GitHub we have three options, right? So enterprise server is the one which is paid version, and auth one is something like that that's need the extra authentication. And
Open
GitHub is our
authorization.
authorization means extra versioning, or we can say the extra authentication
It's open
that is
authorization.
required.
Authorization.
Yeah,
Not
auth mean
authentication.
authorization.
Yeah.
And the first one is GitHub by GitHub app. If you remember, we use the GitHub app for the GitHub creating repository, right? So I
Right.
am going to go with the GitHub. And after I am going to the GitHub, it says you need to connect your repository with this source tree, right? So always remember that we are creating the pipeline on AWS, right?
hmm
And our repository is located on GitHub. So how they are communicating to each other? So we need to make some connection in it, right?
hmm
Because without connection, you are unable to connect your repository with your pipeline, right? So
hmm
when I select the GitHub, so it gives me other options. The first one is connection. Connection means you need to establish the connection between your GitHub repository and your pipeline state, right? Which is our
Yeah.
source state.
Yeah.
So how we can make a connection? We just need to click on this connect to GitHub. So currently we don't have any connection right now, right? So if you can go to the repository name, you can see there is no option here, right? Because
hmm
our connection with the GitHub is not established yet, right? So we
Right.
need to establish the connection. And when the connection is established with my GitHub account, then I see all the repository which is located in my GitHub account here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you remember, where is my GitHub? Let me open my GitHub account. Okay, where is my GitHub? Yeah, this one. Okay, so this is my GitHub account, right? And I have a multiple repository, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if I am going to my repositories, what to go in options. So this is some repository like DevOps, Prac training, data scanning, Athena, DevOps, Rafi training. So this is the my whole of the repositories I created so far, right? But these repository names are not showing in my pipeline here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So why it is not showing right now? Because we need to establish the connection between this source stage or with our GitHub account. So how we can establish the connection? On a very right side, you see the option connect to GitHub, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you just need to press on it, and after pressing it, going to be another service of AWS which is Code Star. So basically,
Mm-hmm.
Code Star, or we can say the connection service that provide us help or provide us connection between our pipeline and our GitHub repository, right? So you
Mm-hmm.
need to name some meaningful connection name. So we can name it DevOps Training Zen Repo, right? And you can also write the dev, right? And after that, you just need to click on connect to GitHub. So now it moves to the another step. So after that, it says you need to install some bot which help us to provide the connection between your GitHub repository and with your pipeline, right? So just click on install a new app. So it automatically installs some bot which automatically connect with my Zen. So now they are asking which account you want to configure with it, right? So this is my account with the username of ZNM3898. You just click on ZNM3898, right? And after that, he is asking for a password. You just type the password of your GitHub account. So my password of GitHub account is that. So after that, just confirm. Yeah. So it is now successfully authenticated, right? So okay. After that, you will click on read applications. All suspend your instances. This will block the access to your machine. Uninstall code connector. This will remove the app and remove all install resources. Only selected repository. You can select either you want to use the some selected repository. Like if I want to connect the my pipeline only with the DevOps Rafi one, I can select it, right? So if you want to go with the old repository, you can also save this option, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
want to go with the old one, right? Yeah, now just click after that, you need to just click on connect. Yeah, so now our establish is successfully created. Now, if I am going to click on repository name, here you can see all the repository name that is located on my GitHub account are now easily accessible from here, right?
Yeah.
So I want to attach or I want to add the repository name for my actual application code, right? Let's
Yeah.
suppose I want to attach it with this DevOps Rafi training, right? So and what branch you want to select for your pipeline? Like if we created a pipeline for dev, we need to select the dev branch. If we created a pipeline for the main, we need to select the main one, right? For testing purpose, we are going to go with the dev branch, right? If you remember in DevOps Rafi training repository, we have three branches, right? So that's why they are asking which branch you want to use to run your code, right? So after that, just click on next. So this is the completion of source stage, right? So in source stage, we just need to establish the connection between the GitHub repository and your code pipeline source stage, right? And after that, you just need to click on next. And currently, we are not to go with the build stage. Just skip this build stage and also skip the deploy stage, right? Because we can discuss this one by one in our next lectures. So just click on skip build stage and just go next. You cannot skip this stage. Maybe you can use anyone for just a testing purpose, right? Because we cannot skip this stage. So just use the bucket which we created. DevOps training, this one. Object key, you can go with the good one. So here you can see when we go to the this is the same pipeline setting we had done so far, pipeline name, version, this, and this is our source stage, and the source stage is basically attached with my GitHub account, right? And this is my connection URL. This by using this connection URL, I am able to attach my GitHub repository with this pipeline, right? And this is
Hmm.
my repository URL, means my repository name, which I am going to use for this pipeline, right? And what branch I am using? I am using the dev branch. So this is simply the overview what you have created so far, right? So just give the build and deploy stage. We can discuss this one by one. Just click on create pipeline. And after click on the create pipeline, we just need to follow the source stage. Either our source state is going to be successful or not, right? So if so, it says the source stage is in progress. What does it mean by the source stage is in progress? So it means it establishing the connection with our GitHub and fetch this repository and code in it, right? So if when they successfully connected and when they successfully fetch our code from our GitHub, this source stage are going to be succeed, right?
Okay.
That's mean we successfully attach our GitHub or code with this stage, which is our source stage, right? So if I am going to this, so it give me through the connection. And if you click on view details, so it gives you says it succeeded, and this is the input. So this is give you a whole input which you send by clicking on the source page, and this is our output, like what email of your GitHub account, branch name, which you currently attach with it, right? So this is the source stage of our pipeline. Just give the deploy stage. We can discuss in our next class what is build stage and deploy stage. So currently you will need to focus on the source stage, right? So that's how we created the source stage and establishing the connection between our source stage or pipeline with our GitHub account, right?
Yeah.
So that's how the simple things are, right? So you need to practice according to your own. If you found any extra time, you will be practicing in your extra time. If you don't found any time, then we can discuss on the class, right?
Hmm.
Yeah. So Rafi, I just seen your message that you sent me before. That I need to have made some changes in my